All right, class, so far we have learned about if statements as a way to control our code. And we've been able to do some fairly complex things, but we haven't been able to select things within ranges without writing multiple lines of code. Our next set of tools that we're going to have in our toolkit is the Boolean operators, which are going to allow us to make much more complex and ask more complex questions of what's happening with our variables and what's going on inside of our code. So let's get into our Boolean operators. So our Boolean operators. So Boolean operators, there's three operators that we need to know. The first operator is the not operator, or an exclamation point. This is not. And what the not operator does is it simply flips whatever the Boolean is. So if we have a Boolean of true, and we put a not in front of it, this will evaluate to false. And anytime we have this expression, it is equivalent to using false. And vice versa. If we put a not in front of false, it evaluates to a true. So it flips it. The next one is the and operator. So it looks like two ampersands. This is and. And the and operator checks to see if both sides of the operator are true. So it's going to check and see if there's a true on both sides of the operator. So true and true gives us true. Oops, true, not false. Getting ahead of myself. And if we say true and false, since one side is false, it will evaluate to false. So if either side of the and is false, it will give us false. So this is the only case here that will give us true. All the other cases, the other three, I guess there's four ways you can have combinations of true and false. They will all evaluate to false except for this one statement here. We also have the or operand. So the or operator works in the other way of true. So it is going to see, as long as one side of its operator is true, it will evaluate to true. So if I have true or false, then this will evaluate to true. And if I have false or false, this will evaluate to false. So it's only looking for one side to be true. And looks for both sides to be true. False looks for one side to be true. And you'll notice that for and, the only case that is true is when there's true, true. And for or, the only case that is false is when it's false, false. Make that a clearer F there. Okay, so let's take a look at these in action. Let's say, for example, that we want to create a piece of code that checks if an integer is between a set of numbers. So our goal is to check if x is between a certain number. So let's say integer x, and let's give it a value of 15. And we want to check if it's between, say, 10 and 20. So one way we could do this, we could say if x is less than or equal to 20, then we'll go ahead and step inside code. And we also want to check if it's greater than 10. So we've checked once that it's been less than 20, and now we need to check that it's greater than 10. So if x is greater than or equal to 10, then we can run some code. So this will check that x is less than 20, less than or equal to 20, or greater than or equal to 10. There's another way to do this with our AND statements. So our AND statements allow us to compress these two statements into one line. And this is what it'll look like. So we would write if x is less than or equal to 20 and x is greater than or equal to 10, then we could run some code. So you can see from this compressed statement that we're able to bring our code into a one line, make it much more clear what we're trying to do, and that we're trying to find x in between this range. It's not totally clear that that's what we're trying to do over on the left-hand side here. And we're able to quickly and easily, much more compressed, much more neat-looking code over on the right-hand side there. So that is our AND operator, really good when we're trying to find something within a specific range. Let's talk about trying to find something not within a range. So let's get rid of, let's try to find something out of the range here. So say we don't want it between 10 and 20. Well, there's a couple ways that we could do this. First way that we could do this is with the OR operator. So with the OR operator, I could ask this question. If my number x is greater than 20, or x is less than 10, now I can run some code. So this checks exclusivity. If x is between these two numbers, we've got a problem, right? Then both of these will be false, and this will be false, and it will skip. If one of these is true, as long as x is either greater than 20 or less than 10, then it will be true and we can run some code. So it's going to check that x is outside of the range of 10 and 20. Another way that we could write this is actually using the same code that we used earlier, but adding our not operator. So a new equivalent of this would be, let me actually shrink this just a little bit. Let me see if it'll let me do it. No, it won't let me shrink it. Okay, never mind. We're going to do it down below. So I'm going to say if, let's write it like this. So if x is less than or equal to 20 and x is less than or equal, or sorry, greater than or equal to greater than or equal to 10. Right, so this, remember that this checks whether or not it's inside of that range, but let's flip that by saying if it's inside this range, we've got a problem, so then we're going to surround it by parentheses and put a not in front of it, and then we can run some code. And of course, you can combine these ands with else ifs and all the other things that we do. Something to pay attention to here is the greater than or equals to versus the just simple greater than or equals. In this case, I'm making sure that the ranges match by changing up the symbols. If I use the same symbols inside of my ors and ands, I would have a problem that my ranges would be off by 1 and there would be a gap in what I check. So using a different greater than or equals to or a simple greater than or less than changes the gap or changes where your code is checking. So be careful on what you are checking against, whether or not it's a simple greater than or equal to or a greater than. Okay, next we're going to talk about truth tables and how those are a powerful tool, a lot like code tracing, for helping us decide and figure out what tool is best for our code. I'll see you in the next one.